everybody. Welcome to Beat the Clock. My name is Michelle Rubio-Garcia. I am the host and creator of this thing. It is a personal development podcast trying to empower you guys through personal testimonies. So, collectively, all of our interviewees answer 4 questions. 1, who were you? 2, who are you? 3, who will you be? And then 4, how can listeners avoid clocking out? We have honest, vulnerable conversations, and we analyze our own successes to nurture your purpose, passion, and personal growth. So before we jump into introducing today's guest, I would like to say thank you to everybody tuning in. So if you're a first-time guest, thank you so much for giving this a shot. If you're coming back, welcome back, family. Yeah. I don't know where that came from, but I'm feeling it. So I just really appreciate everybody right now. I'm still kind of riding a wave, so to speak. So number 1, I want to give a huge, tremendous, abundant, loud thank you to my launch team. So recently, it's crazy what's been going on the past few weeks. So blessing after blessing, but the biggest blessing by far is what just happened this past Sunday. So just last week, I was saying on BTC that I was an aspiring author. And 1 week later, because of my launch team, I'm able to say I am an author who debuted at number 1 in their category on Amazon. Like, that's insane, guys. I don't think you comprehend what just happened, and I don't think you know how much it means to me. I was scared. The title of the book is called Breakthrough Fear, but I was scared, and even just creating this book was me breaking through fear. I'm wearing a shirt right now. You can't see it, but it says, "For God does not give us a spirit of fear, but of a spirit of power and of love and of a sound mind." So this is something that, again, was a step in my faith, a step in faith with God, step in faith in myself, step of faith in that you guys would step up. And even some people that weren't on the launch team, holy cow, like I saw like 70, almost 70 shares the day of launch. There were people that reached out to me who I hadn't even spoken to since like elementary school, and they were helping me out. So everybody that helped, even if you weren't on the exclusive quote unquote launch team, thank you so much. The launch team devoted more time. I was bugging them a little bit more through text message. They read for me, they reviewed for me. Just an unstoppable force. Thank you so much. And even some of them went the extra mile and like gave me phone calls to tell me their feedback. Some of you guys gave me advice. Other of you guys gave me edits. Just so much love. That's all I have to say. So much love and so much appreciation is what I'm feeling. It's kind of hard to verbalize. I mean, I just wrote a whole book, right? But it's really hard to put into words how thankful I am for you guys. So thank you so much. We're proving, collectively that we can go up against a monopoly and we can use their algorithm against them, and we can forge some change. So thank you. Thank you. I can't say it enough. You guys deserve this airtime, and just know that you're powerful and that you have a voice. You don't need a podcast to have a voice. You don't need a book to have a voice. You can have a voice in your community, and it's just as powerful. So with that being said, let's go ahead and transition into our guest for today. Her name is Ellen Yin. Super awesome, super humble, and very honored that she's here. I was reaching out to a lot of people, and she was one of the first ones outside of Texas that was very intrigued by this idea and very supportive of it. So thank you so much, Ellen. If you're going to listen to this, you gave me a lot of faith that I was moving in the right direction. And I'm not saying that I'm placing all my stock in you saying yes, but it was definitely a game changer in my mind. So thank you so much. Ellen Yin is the founder of Cubicle to CEO, an online membership teaching service that shows people how to monetize their skills and use a step-by-step client attraction system to create their first 10K month without a large audience or complicated marketing strategies. Through her social media agency, Ellen Yin Media LLC, Ellen has worked with multi-million dollar brands, Fortune 500 executives, and best-selling authors. She has been featured on MTV and in publications like Glamour Magazine, The Penny Hoarder, Women's Health, and Her Campus. Ellen is also the host of the award-winning Cubicle to CEO podcast, which features weekly interviews with top business leaders and successful entrepreneurs. So, I feel so fortunate to talk to her, and I feel very, very excited to share her with you guys and from the BTC community. And again, anyone for the first time, welcome. Come back, please. And so let's see if she beats the clock, and let's see what she has to say. So this is Beat the Clock, and we have today Mrs. Ellen Yin from Oregon. Early morning for you, right, Ellen?
Yes, it is. It's 8 a.m., so not too early, but I'm excited to be here. Thank you, Michelle.
And I just want to say congratulations. I saw that you bought a new home. Congratulations.
Thank you so much. I'm really excited. We are closing in, well, actually, it should be next week. And so, we're doing some painting and reflooring. So it might be a couple more weeks before we fully move in, but first time home buying experience. So very, very excited about it.
Yeah, I remember that experience, and it just feels like such a validating moment that you're on the right track, right?
Yeah, no, totally. It's definitely feels like an accomplishment having it as your own than, renting. Although I gotta admit, I do also like the renter life because I'm I'm kind of not very organized in my personal life. And so like keeping a small space more organized and clean is a lot easier than a house.
Right. I intentionally bought smaller. I was being, finessed into a bigger home, but we like to travel, my husband and I, and we like to, we don't need a lot of space. We don't have kids. So I really like that I bought small because my husband, even now, he's doing the grass and stuff, and he's like, this would have been so much more work with double the space. So I totally agree with that philosophy. Tight spaces sometimes are a little more beneficial. So I'm going to go ahead and explain something to you. So when I run the promo ads, I obviously have your name, I obviously have your title, but then underneath it in parentheses, I have what I feel is the essence of that person, because we attach all these labels to us, right? But then there's always something underneath that label. So for you, when I was looking through your profile, the phrase that came to me was honest helper. And I don't know if you feel like that encompasses you.
Wow, that's a huge compliment. Thank you. I love that. I've never heard that phrase described like as my I don't know what you would call it, title or whatever, but I think it's like the best one I've ever had. So thank you.
Yeah, and I just feel like I was thinking about a lot of words with you, but you're so transparent, and I think that's your biggest asset. And then you're comfortable enough in the spotlight, but you're humble enough to step back when you need to. So I guess that's why the word helper came. I was going to say servant, but then that felt a little much. So you're a helper, you're here to lift people up. And I just, again, want to thank you so much for stepping into this space with me and agreeing to help me. Thank you.
Oh, of course. Well, I'm so happy to be here and to chat with your community. I think relationships are the most important and my favorite part of business. So anytime we can connect with somebody new and, get to know them on a deeper level, like we are this morning, Michelle, I just am so grateful.
Awesome. So something that I think you do very well, like I mentioned, is you're transparent. So you reflect a lot, and it feels more like a diary entry sometimes in your post, and I love that. I'm doing a PhD in communication, so we're studying influence, right? Social media and influence. Actually, I took some courses, or influence through entertainment. I've taken a couple. So something that you're really channeling, I think, is this thing called a parasocial interaction. So everybody, whenever they look at an idol or a celebrity or whatever you want to call it, they're looking up to them because of what they're willing to share. And because of that, it feels like we know each other, even though I barely met you today. It feels like we're in the same wavelength in terms of thought. So one thing that I really liked about you was that you reflected on how much you've changed this year. So I'm just going to really quickly talk about what you did. So in 2019, you said the question that guided you was, how do I do this, right? Mm-hmm. And now in 2020, you changed that question and you asked yourself,
who do I need to become? So that really, really blends in nicely with the vision of Beat the Clock. So I'm just going to jump right in and ask you, who were you before?
Yeah, I think who I was before, at least in the sense of business, right? I
Mm-hmm.
started my business in 2018 as really a freelancer that quickly grew into more of an actual established marketing business. And even though I worked with, a team of contractors, for the most part, I really was a solopreneur.
Mm-hmm.
And that was very much my journey for a while. And when I said I used to approach situations or new challenges by asking, how do I do this? It was because, it kind of all goes back to that idea of you feel like you have to do everything alone. And it's like me, me, me. Like, how do I learn the tactics or the
Mm-hmm.
strategies in order to accomplish whatever it is? But nowadays, I feel like, my mindset has shifted a lot. And I never used to think I wanted to build a team in my business. And I thought, I'm totally fine just making a healthy living for myself and just me, myself, and I. But I've realized that the impact that I can make goes beyond just, externally to the community, but also internally within the environment, and opportunities that I can create from a company setting.
Yeah, and I think you're so right about that. And that's something that I've adopted too. Recently, I went to a leadership slash entrepreneurial kind of seminar in Denver, and they were talking about how he had like a really like punchy line, but he said essentially that you have to understand that you're a finite resource. So if you
Mm-hmm.
are always trying to take everything on, you're actually limiting yourself because there's only so many hours in the day and you're going to burn out. And that's something I think you said somewhere in your post too. And so he said you either learn a skill or you can still be the resource, but you evolve by hiring it instead of learning it yourself.
Absolutely. And I think you brought up a really great point, Michelle, which is that time is your most finite resource, right? And really there you can give your time, you can give your energy, or you can give your money.
Mm-hmm.
And the more that I've grown in business, the more I've come to value my time over those other two things. And so anything I can do to save time is worthwhile to me.
Awesome. Yeah, me too. And I'm so glad that you created resources for me. And your hashtag hacks has already helped me, believe it or not. So that's
Oh, that's
something,
so great.
yeah, shameless plug, but not so shameless. And yeah, I looked at the statistics or whatever. And in one post, I mean, again, super tiny following right now, but in one post that did very well, as much as 76% of the traffic came from your hashtag strategy. So I just want to praise you
Wow.
for that. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing. Thank you. I love hearing those success stories because I really believe in, the value that people have to share with the world at every stage of entrepreneurship. And I really love helping people with tiny audiences get their message out there because like this podcast idea, when you brought it to me and my team, such a great idea, right? And more people should have the platform to be able to share their message with the world. So I'm so glad that hashtags helped you with that.
Yeah, and like you're saying, you helped me cut back time because of some of the things that are included in there. So I'm not going to tell everybody, but it's totally worth the investment. It's honestly one of the smartest purchases I've ever made. Period. So
Thank you.
I'm so thankful for that. So if we're talking about saving time, something that I really liked that you did was that you also maximized your time. There is this balance where you have to kind of reduce certain traits or habits and then increase the other ones. So one that you talked about was your routine. So I'm just going to quickly go over it. You went over how you love reading. You said that you love the millionaire mindset meditation and that you avoid social media first thing in the morning and checking your status and your comments. And I thought, yes, someone gets it, and I'm not crazy because I purchased recently like an old school clock with an alarm, and that's so foreign to me now in
Mhm.
2020. But it just changes the start and the pace and the mindset of my day just by not using and depending solely on my smartphone. So, can you speak more into that and how your routine kind of sets the tone?
Yeah. So I will, in the name of honesty and transparency, I am definitely a work in progress with morning routines. By no means am I the person who has, an established routine that I'm there and executing every single morning. But the post that you're referencing, it was all about being intentional and understanding that the way you start your day has a big effect on the way that the rest of your day goes, and really setting the tone for what is most important to you. What do you want to prioritize? And for me, learning has always been, something that brings me a lot of joy and that also keeps me in a growth mindset. And so that's why, reading, reading books for fun or for, learning is important to me. And it's something that I want to prioritize. And then the idea of not checking social first thing in the morning, I think as soon as you do that, you are really taking on the role of a consumer instead of a creator, right? And you're allowing your
Love that.
yeah.
Oh my God. That's a great
and
line.
and you're really letting your thoughts be infiltrated by the outside world before you can even form your own thoughts around the day. And so I don't believe that there is like some magic morning routine out there, but I think the biggest thing is to ask yourself, what are my non-negotiables? Like, what are the things that make me feel good and allow me to have, the best foot forward starting my day? And whatever that is, build that into your routine and be flexible, knowing that life is, ever changing, a little bit hectic sometimes, and you may not always be able to do everything that you want to do, but at least pick one thing each morning that's going to set you in a good mood and really, bring joy to your day.
And I love that you mentioned that because again, I love your transparency. So you did mention your routine, right? But then in other posts, you were talking about, again, being adaptive. So you tried the 5 a.m. thing and it didn't work for you. And that awareness is actually really key. If you try something that's not going to work for you, then it's not sustainable, right? And
Totally.
another thing that I really like that you mentioned was your philosophy with weightlifting, right? And how that informed the rest of your life. So you said simplicity plus consistent efforts over time is so much better than, again, taking everything on at once. Do you want to spend a little more time on that idea?
Absolutely. So the analogy that I was giving there is, and just for a little context for those listening, so for the last, I don't know, 5, 6 years, weightlifting has been a big part of my life, probably more so in the first 3 to 4 years than the last 2 years.
And
I
can I
will
interject and just say,
yeah.
there's like an assumption that weightlifting for women is going to make you bulky. You're beautiful and you have like an incredible body, and it doesn't match that little myth. So great job.
Oh my gosh, thank you. Well, I was totally going to say that my degree is actually in exercise science, and I
Oh.
was a very consistent like gym fanatic for all of college and, for a couple years after. But I will say when I dived into business and entrepreneurship, I do believe that I let my health take more of a back seat. And so it's something that I'm getting back into, but
Mhm.
again, in the name of honesty, right?
Yeah.
But then the analogy that I was speaking to is this idea that a lot of beginners to lifting believe that in order to have the body of their dreams or to be fit or make progress, that they have to do a different workout every day. So I see this all the time. People will, they'll save all these things on Pinterest. They'll do like, oh, I'm going to do these abs, exercises that I saw on Pinterest. And then the next day they're like, oh, this influencer posted this, booty workout. I'm going to do that. And then I'm going to do, a 5 mile run the next day. And they always feel like they're having to change and do something new
Mhm.
to challenge their body. But the truth is, you actually make the most progress when you do the most simple, basic lifts over and over again, incrementally increasing the resistance, right? The weight that you're actually lifting. And
Right.
so I felt like that really applied to business because I describe myself as a marketing minimalist, and that's really the philosophy that I teach my students. And I see all the time people drowning in shiny object syndrome because this marketing industry online is always throwing new things at you and saying, oh, this is the secret key to whatever, or this is the new tactic of 2020. And people are always chasing things like, how did the Instagram algorithm change, or how did this happen or that happen? And they're chasing all of these surface level metrics when really they should be focused on the foundations of business, which is understanding sales psychology and building relationships and being able to create an offer that actually solves a problem in the marketplace. And so these foundations people forget, and they try to do all of these marketing strategies at once instead of sticking to a simple system.
Right. I totally agree. And that's what was so refreshing about your product, because you didn't try to finesse me and you didn't try to kind of talk me into that frenzy because, you know, when you work someone into that frenzy, you activate adrenaline and you kind of create a sense of urgency that may not be realistic all the time. A lot of the mundane things are really what matters, and it's getting lost a little bit. So I'm really glad that you're saying, you know, it's just about the basics. And that's something I talk about in the book that I'm actually writing, which we'll talk about after because I want to offer you a free coffee. But
Oh my gosh, that's so
yeah,
exciting.
yeah, and it's talking about nailing the basics because everyone thinks you have to do 101 things, and it's not that. And I know that for me, I used to coach dance for 5 years, and we got the first national title in the school's almost 40-year history, right? And so,
Wow.
yeah, and part of what kept us successful despite significant gaps in learning and dance IQ was that I kept it simple and I had to adapt. I was in a very successful drill team when I was in high school, and then I wanted to directly just copy and paste that into this one. And while I used some of it, I really had to change, and I had to change quickly. But I had to scale back to the basics, and that to me was so magical because I thought that there was so much that I had to do, and all I really had to do was focus on the girls and meeting them at their level and understanding that you know, we're in this together, and there's tons of obstacles, but if we just get in the right headspace and if we just do, you know, the structure that we're doing daily consistently, that'll translate into some really incredible results.
That's so cool. Well, first off, I don't know if you know this about me, but I was actually on dance team in high school too, and for part of
Oh,
college. So we have that in
awesome.
common. I love the world of dance. We definitely were not a what is it like a winning team that like that you said you were part of in school, but dance has been, you know, such a big part of my life, and it's one of those things, right? That's community based, and I think that you kind of really bring that into the world of business too. And so I can see you know, why you use that as an analogy. I mean, it's so applicable.
And I mean, even in terms of, you know, numbers, we keep talking about numbers and followings and doing 1,000 things. I was really pressured into building the team, right? There's around 1,500 kids at my school that I teach at. And so if you do the math, you know, roughly 50 is women. And so 750, I'm a bad at math. I'm trying to do it on the fly.
No, you're
So
totally fine.
750 girls are there, right? If we split it
Hmm.
evenly, and only 20 show up to try out, right?
Yeah.
Very small percentage. And I got a lot of pressure. You know, you got to grow the team, you got to grow the team. But I always told my team, everybody's making it seem like us being small is a weakness, but actually it's our biggest strength. There's less clicks. There's more time for me to focus on you. And with the challenges that they come with, a lot of them start like they're in high school, right? A lot of them start day one, no dance. They like I literally have to teach them how to count on rhythm. And
Mm-hmm.
so we didn't cave to that pressure. At least I didn't. And so I'm so about quality. I'd much rather have 10 girls that are so committed rather than 30 who are, you know, just in their little headspace. And I really think, honestly, that if I would have scaled the team up, we would not have won a national title. So I just really think that, again, an emphasis on quality is kind of something that needs to be reprioritized.
I could not agree more. And you know, I came from a small team as well, and so I really agree there that it is the it and everything we're saying is kind of like going back to analogy, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like finding the right girls is kind of like being able to market your products or your services to the right audience who
Right.
actually can be helped by you. And so yeah, I totally agree that it is all about the quality. I really in terms of chasing things like followers or likes or anything like that, I call all of those things vanity metrics. They're really
Mm.
not important to the success of your business. And anytime anyone is stressing about it, I get DMs all the time like, how do I do this to grow more followers or whatever? And I always have to ask them like, why do you want more followers? Like, what is the objective that you are actually trying to accomplish? And a lot of times they're like, well, I need to make more sales, or I want to, you know, make my first whatever $10,000 month. And and then when they verbalize that, I'm like, okay, so you have a belief in your head that you must have X amount of followers and in order to have a profitable business, but that's not true. And if that's the case, then we can shift your perspective there and say, okay, if having a profitable business is your goal, followers is not what you should be worried about. Now, if you're trying to be, the next Insta famous celebrity, totally different objective, totally different path to get there. And so I think being clear on what you actually want, not only in business or dance, but in life, just being clear on what you actually want, it really informs your path to getting there.
Right. And again, just everything in my life right now there's like a synergy and everything's blending so nicely. So something that you talked about was, how you don't need the most followers to have the most impact. And I was reading about what's called a healthy triangle in entertainment. So everybody thinks that you have to have like 1 million diehard followers, but in the healthy triangle, again, math, numbers, I don't know all the time, but basically, I think it was like 15 to 20% of your fans that are like considered super fans, those are actually the ones that are going to do the most work for you. So generally speaking, 75 to 80% of your audience will be either apathetic or not a fan, to be honest. But if you can really hone in on your target audience and really just nurture them, then you're going to get more results by focusing on a smaller group.
100%. I think even the other day, I can't remember if it was an ad or what, something came across the feed that was like, how to build 100 true fans. And I was like, oh, that's so powerful, because, most people looking at that, they're like, oh, 100 people, that's not a lot, but 100 true fans can make waves, for you, for your mission, for the impact that you can make. And I love what you said there about how 15 to 20% of your of your fan base, your super fans, so to speak, are the ones who are pulling the most weight. And it applies. Have you ever heard of the 80-20 principle?
No.
So it's this idea that 20% of the effort that you're making or the things that you do actually create 80% of the results. And so
is that for exercise? Maybe I have. Like with diet?
No, I think it might be something applicable to like that as well. But I first heard it in a business setting, and it was really fascinating. They were basically saying like a lot of people keep themselves busy, and they're always in the hustle. But when they really take a look at what they're spending their time on each day, it's only 20% of the tasks they're doing that actually produce 80% of the revenue, 80% of the results. And so I think that rule really speaks to what you were just saying, about super fans.
Yeah. And if we think about it, I mean, again, people think visibility translates into sales, but that's not always the case. So something that I kind of was thinking about was the fact that, talent agents with actresses and their talent, whatever they may be doing, they make 10% profit off of just not coasting, but latching on to somebody else. So they're not even in front and center, and they're getting significant amounts of income. So I just think that's very telling of maybe a strategy that people are not as receptive towards. And I just really think that there's something there.
Absolutely. It goes back to this idea that influence is easier to borrow than it is to create. And if you can understand that and understand how to source traffic that's already been created for you, it's going to totally change the way that you market.
Yeah. And so we're going to go into question number 2, which is, who are you now?
So who I am now, it's interesting right now because I feel like I really am in a transformative stage of my life.
Me too.
Yeah, like having to unlearn a lot of things that have, kept me where I am. Just yeah, like unlearning both in a personal sense with, what is going on in the world and understanding my role in that, but also unlearning from a business perspective the need to control and do everything, right? Be that one woman show. And how do you really actually go and empower your team to help you, craft a vision, to help you, I guess not so much craft the vision, but execute the vision. So it's just a transformative period of my life. I'm really having to dig deep and understand, okay, here are the limiting beliefs and the things that have kept me, where I am so far in life, and here's what I have to do. Again, who do I have to become to get to that next level?
Yeah, and I really think that I'm unlearning a lot of the same things. I'm so used to being a one-woman show, and it got me a lot of credit, to be honest, being a dance director. But I recently let it go, like as recently as 2 weeks ago, and that was a significant shift for me because I was opening up to the universe, so to speak, and saying, you know, I'm game for whatever comes next. And I was so in control in my other one, my other identity, so to speak. And now I'm like, it's just a week or two into this, and I am feeling so much satisfaction from the process. Like, I wouldn't have met you. I wouldn't have done so many things that I'm doing right now. And something that I think is worth noting is that just because you don't have that one woman mentality anymore doesn't mean that you can't use your skill set. Like, for example, I used to be on my students' newspaper, my university student newspaper. There we go. And all of those interviewing skills transferred into this, right? All of my promos for the dance team translated into this. And eventually what I want to do is kind of impart that knowledge to my team. So again, I don't have to do it all. And I think that's the secret sauce. I think it was Picasso that said, the meaning of life is to find your gift, and then the purpose of it is to give it away.
Oh, that's so beautiful. I've heard that quote before. Yeah. No, I agree. It, it's such a multifaceted thing, but I think it's really beautiful to um, be able to share the best parts of you with those around you, right? And help light their fire too, their light to go shine brighter in the world.
Yeah, and again, I think that's what you're doing. Even just by sharing your thoughts on social media, you're modeling the transparency or the authenticity, and maybe even the mindset that you hope that others adopt. So one thing I super respected about you was that you said, I'm saying something that could get me into trouble, right? And hurt my business. All of the information that I am offering you is on the internet for free. And I was like, I literally took a step back and I was like, who says that? And who is so vulnerable? Who's willing to be that vulnerable? And so I started thinking about you. And that's what kind of like encouraged me to reach out to you, because I was like, I want to explore that mind. And again, it comes back to honesty. So when you're that honest, you're transparent, obviously, and transparency leads to trust. So you're trusting your consumers, or they're trusting you, I'm sorry, because you're not deceiving them. You're being straight up and you're saying, hey, I'm not here to just think about me. You know, I'm not just, trying to talk you into a sales pitch. And then honestly, you're exercising trust in yourself, because you're saying that you're confident enough in yourself that you still add value, even in the midst of an abundance of information. So it shows that you don't perceive that abundance as a threat, and you see the value in what you bring. So it's confidence, obviously, and then you become, or you shift from a master of this thing to a resource. And so, yes, there's an abundance of information, but your value actually lies in organizing or managing that information. So your products, therefore, they're saving time. Again, if we're going back to time, you trim the fat, you trim the research time, you trim the time it takes for me to learn it, and you condense it in an absorbable way. So I just really like that philosophy that you were very vulnerable in sharing.
Thank you. Yeah, all the time people ask me, like, oh, what's different, or like, what am I going to learn? Because they're always again looking for that quick fix, right? Yeah, that magic pill. And I'm like, well, I know you've heard this 1,000 times before, but it's true for a reason. It doesn't exist. And I literally have straight up told people in DM conversations, I'm like, look, anything I can tell you, anything I can teach you, if you dig hard enough, you will find it on the internet. Like, very few ideas are new in this world, right?
Right.
It's all about perspective, and understanding that the way that I absorb information and teach it to someone is going to be different than if you absorb the exact same information and teach it to someone, because it goes through my lens of life and my lived experiences. And so exactly what you said right there, it's all about I tell people there is no shortcut to success, but you can shortcut other people's mistakes, including my
There
own.
you go.
And so if I can give you perspective and if I can give you a system, what people actually desire is results and convenience and efficiency, right? It's not necessarily info. We all have been on the receiving end of information overwhelm. And I don't think that actually helps accelerate you toward anything. So I always tell people, I'm not in the information dealing space, right? I'm all
Right.
about giving you a step-by-step system that you can follow because you want a specific result. And the result is what we're focused on, not the information that's going to get you to the result.
Right. And I mean, again, going back to numbers. So you have, I think when I saw last time, you have like roughly 17K followers, but you are making six figures, and you already spoke it into existence that you're going to make seven figures. So again, people get intimidated by numbers, right? 300K, 1 million, 2 point some million followers, but you're making very comparable salaries with like a fraction of that traffic. And I think it goes back to, prioritizing the right things. And I also think that, you know, knowing your niche, I guess, is key.
Oh, 100%. And I just want to preface here that, and this is another big transformation that's happened recently, was when I was in my service-based business, I quickly grew to a six-figure business in my first year. And at the time, I had like 3,000 followers. So, I mean, even less than now. And those people were not even my ideal clients. They were literally people that, followed me for my gym workouts. Because like I said, like that was my big passion for a long time. And that's mostly what I shared online before I dove into entrepreneurship.
Mhm.
So, I really don't believe that your audience size again correlates to your profits. And the big transformation that happened for me recently was I had a realization, oh wow, we've grown from a six-figure company per se to actually having products that make six figures by themselves, like multiple six-figure products. And I was like, that is already a shift. And like you said, my next vision is to reach the seven-figure mark so that again, I can bring on more people. So we just hired our first full-time employee, and being able to offer a job to someone with health benefits and really feel like they're part of your work family was so exciting. It was more exciting of an accomplishment than any revenue amount that I could make. And I just know that the more revenue we can make, the more impact we can make with hiring full-time team members, giving especially women, jobs that they love, utilizing their skills, and then go out and be able to grow our community and help other women, leave jobs that they are unhappy in and really be able to use their gifts for good. So it all kind of ties back in together. But yeah, such a privilege to be able to go through this growth journey.
Yeah, and I love that too. Even me, that I'm just considering getting somebody and not paying them yet, but someone who's very excited to help me out. Even just the fact that that they see me as enough of an authority that they want to be under my wing, so to speak. Like, that's really humbling. I don't want to say it pumps me up. It humbles me because it's like, wow, like people are buying into the mission. And again, if we think about followers, people who want more followers, even if you want more followers, you have to realize that it doesn't go from 0 to 1 million, right? It goes from 0 and then it incrementally increases. So I just think that when you have, again, a bigger network and a network that really believes in you, it's just such an empowering thing.
Yeah, definitely. And I think networking is such a phrase that I feel like has a lot of ideas in people's minds that may not be true, right? Most people think of networking like showing up at an event, giving people
Mm-hmm.
a business card. They're like, oh, that's networking. I'm like, no, no, no. Networking is something that you should constantly be doing, not only when you need it. That's most people's mistake, is that they wait until they need a connection or a handout or a favor to go network with someone. And I think that networking is the most important thing you could ever do in your business. People are the true assets in your business, right? Not the information, not the strategies, not the systems, software, whatever you want to call it. It's people. And so understanding how important that is, and always coming from a place of service in, especially when you first meet someone, like, how can I give generously and be a connector? And I think you do that so well, Michelle. Like, even with you and I meeting, right? Like, right off the bat, you're providing a platform for me to come share my story and message. And that is taking generous action. And it's hard for people to say no to that. And so I think understanding, how networking is so important, and how to do it well is one of the best skills that you can acquire and, implement in your life.
I agree. And I mean, we know, we recognize it, because if you just think in terms of service, right? Chick-fil-A, like, they can
Oh, the
afford
best service.
yeah, and they can literally afford to close one day. I don't know that any other fast food chain does that. And they can do
Yeah.
that because they focus on their people and training them correctly. And
Mhm.
I mean, the Chick-fil-A lines are like never empty. I think when it's empty, an apocalypse is happening. So yeah, I just think you're really onto something there when you say it's about people first. So jumping
Yeah.
right in into that. So the third question, obviously, in this format is, who will you be? So right now, what I really like about you is your emphasis on relationships with your clients. And I really like specifically that you don't broadcast your personal relationships as much. And I'm coming, again, from a gendered point of view, but there's always this pressure for females to share every single part of their lives and to look like the mother first, the girlfriend first, the whatever first. And so I really like that you kind of scale back, right? It's being strategic about your relationships, because to me, I don't share that much about my marriage either. And that's that I'm not even, anywhere near your influence, but
Oh,
my relationship
that's not
is,
true. But
my relationship is kind of sacred to me, and it's personal. It's between my husband and I, and it's intimate. So I try not to share that much, honestly. And I really appreciate that about you. I think every once in a while, maybe like 13 posts in, you'll mention a little thing, and I just like that. I guess I'll call it like a tease, right? You show us a little snippet, and we get a sense of you and your relationship, but you're not overtly always broadcasting it. And so, do you want to say where you're going with your relationship, or do you want to say where you're going with your business relationships? Who are you going to be?
Yeah, I love this question. In response to my personal relationship, it it's funny because I think when I don't know if I ever had this like moment where I was like, you know what, I'm just like not going to show this online, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know that it was at first an intentional decision, but I think the way that I view my social platforms, because I use it primarily for business, anytime I post something, it has to, in my mind, have value to someone other than myself. And
Right.
so, just posting a bunch of pictures of me and my boyfriend does not bring a ton of value to my audience.
Right.
And so, uh, I use it intentionally. And obviously, his name is Destin, and he's a very important part of my life. And those who are in my life from a personal perspective, my best friends and my family obviously know him very well. So I feel like I'm very open and honest about my life and sharing all aspects of my life, but I also believe that having a sense of, I don't know what the right word is, but
Boundaries.
yes, boundaries would be one way to look at it. Yeah, just understanding like not every part of your life has to be on display in order for you to have a real relationship with the people that that you connect with online. And so yeah, I do keep that part of my life a little bit more private, and I always have. And I mean, I don't know how that will change in the future, too, especially like um when we get married, or if we have kids, like that. I mean, those things are like unknown to me, so I don't know how much they will be a part of my future online presence. But
Mm-hmm.
no matter what, I think that whenever I share, my hope is that there's meaning, and there's a lesson that I've learned that someone else can gain value from. So I hope that answers your question in terms of like where my personal relationship is going. But in terms of business relationships, right now I am just very focused on team and finding the right people to be part of my team. So the
Mm-hmm.
person that we hired full time is my podcasting community manager. She's amazing. Her name is Paige. And she's been with me for like the longest. She's like my longest team member.
She was the one I emailed, or like we were, facilitating this
Yes.
meet. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, she's incredible. And she's just so good with relationships, so great with people, and has such a heart for relationships and for people. And so I think she's perfect in that role. But then looking forward, as I want to continue building this company, I know there are certain roles that need to be filled. One of the roles that has been on my mind is that of an integrator. It's kind of like I don't know, like a modern day COO, really like your right hand person, the person that steers the ship and keeps everything running.
Mm-hmm.
And as I'm growing as a business owner, I do want to remove myself more and more and more from the day-to-day in the weeds tasks and really focus big picture vision so that we can move faster and impact more people. And that's a hard role to fill. I haven't really started like publicly looking, but just learning about different team roles, such as, the integrator, has really got my mind kind of just focused on, okay, what relationships in this season of my business do I need to focus on nurturing, cultivating, finding, in order to, continue growing?
Yeah, totally. I feel like I'll give you like one little line from the book, and I said it in another interview, but I just think I even surprised myself when that thought came out of my head because I said, not everybody is meant to be center stage, but everybody is meant to be part of the production. And so,
What book is that from?
From mine.
Oh, from your book. Okay. Well, I like that. That's really good.
Yeah, I was like, whoa, where did that come from? And I just think that everybody needs to understand their value. And I think that your vision maybe moving forward is about managing those roles, guiding everybody into their specific skill set, because again, everybody can add value. And if you pick the right people and put them in the right spot, then you're in a place of power. So wrapping it up, I want to go ahead and ask you the final question. So for our listeners, I want you to answer, how can they avoid clocking out on their dreams? So many of us think that, again, it's up to everybody else to kind of dictate where we go in life, that there's a lot of perceived limitations. But what would you say to those who think that and how they can adjust that thinking?
I love this question, and there's so many things I want to say, but for brevity's sake, I think the biggest thing is to recognize that complacency or average is your enemy. It's
Mm-hmm.
not the terrible, right? People always think, man, something really bad has to happen or something really life altering needs to occur in order for me to make a change. But I really think that if you look at complacency as your enemy, then you realize anytime that you have been stuck in your comfort zone, it's just good enough, it's okay, it's passing, anytime you get stuck in that mindset, that's the true danger. And you have to recognize that and say, okay, I am going to initiate this change, even if there's not an external event forcing me to change. So not waiting for other people to give you permission or life events to give you permission to make a change. And it can be really uncomfortable and really scary, but if you can learn that one small thing and really implement it, it's going to make a huge difference. So I would say that's my biggest piece of advice, but I have a lot of thoughts on this.
I think so too. I think comfort kills, and that's something that I always tell everybody. Comfort means you need to move on. Like the moment you start settling in, it's not that you can't enjoy the moment, but it's that, if you stay in that moment too long, you'll get too comfortable in that feeling and you won't want to feel anything else. So when you keep failing forward, I'll call it, you will get a full human experience. I know that's getting like super metaphysical, but the moment you kind of stay in one spot for too long, you're limiting your human emotions. There's so much happiness. There's so much sadness too. I mean, there's so much you can feel if you just are willing to. And again, people are scared of feeling those negative thoughts, but if you feel those negative thoughts, you value the happy thoughts even more.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that diversity and broad spectrum of feeling is really what you said, makes a rich human and life experience. And so, yeah, a failure, I'm so glad you brought that up. Earlier, when we were just chatting at the beginning, you mentioned failure is a precursor to success. I would almost go so far as to say failure is a requirement of success.
Good.
I truly truly do not know a single successful person in life who has not had massive amounts of failure, more
Right.
so than the average person. And I think that's actually the key indicator of a successful person, is that they just have a higher tolerance for failure, because you have to kind of by default fail more times than the average person in order to have some wild, results or outcome, or do something exceptional that the average person doesn't accomplish. So I would say that if you have big dreams and a big vision for your life, just understand that now and develop an affinity for failure. Be excited about every time you fail, because you're going to come away smarter than when you enter that situation.
Awesome. So I have 10 seconds. I'm going to wrap it up. We'll talk a little bit after, Ellen, but thank you so much. We're clocking out here, but don't you clock out on your own life. Thanks.